An exclusive on Salam Media and One Nation FM.
So we've had this fascinating how-to series. We've also had this fascinating series on the most historical mosques in South Africa, and we'll chat about the Palm Street Mosque coming up later on. So do not miss that. In between that, Discovery Health from a medical scheme point of view, have got together a new Sharia-based medical scheme product. I'm really interested to find out what that all means, right? But the how-to segment, we've done a whole lot of things around that. Now about Tarawee, how to lead the Tarawee in terms of what goes into it. So who's going to help us with answers is Qari Ziyaad Patel. Qari Ziyaad, good talking to you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Ashraf. What an honor to be speaking with you, a legend in our community. May Allah bless you. And honestly, I make dua for you every day that Allah accept you for the khidmah, the service of our community and our ummah. Ameen.
Inshallah, Ameen to that. You're very, very kind. I can say all the things times 10 for yourself. I know you've been busy. Bosman Mosque, you've been in Cape Town as well in the last few days. And therefore, you've got this responsibility to share with us. So we were fascinated about, from an Imam point of view, when you perform the Tarawih, you would need to be a Hafiz firstly. What's the type of preparation that goes into it? I mean, firstly, when do you start preparing to lead the Tarawih? Like one day before Ramadan, 1 week before, 1 year before? When does it all start for you?
So first and foremost, as a Hafiz of the Quran Kareem, you got to maintain it. And they say practice makes perfect. That's how it goes. Practice makes perfect. So you got to keep at it. You got to keep your memory sharp. And how that can be done. So it's a constant thing throughout the entire year. One needs to revise. But yes, as there's a build up to the month of Ramadan, as you come closer to the month of Ramadan, there has to be extra revision. So that will actually happen a bit more in the month of Sha'ban, the month preceding Ramadan. In the month of Sha'ban, there will be a bit more revision which will take place. And most Huffaz will try to make one khatam or one completion of the Quran, reciting the Quran to somebody in the month of Sha'ban. So that's a good re-jog for the memory. And then when the month of Ramadan sets in, and you know that the next or that night you're going to be performing Salat al-Tarawih. So there's a lot of revision that goes on during the day as well. So one cannot just say, okay, I'm Hafiz of the Quran and perhaps I'll just go make Tarawih. No, there has to be an adequate amount of preparation, and that preparation takes a lot of revision, a lot of reciting, and you've got to really remind yourself and remember what you have memorized.
So let's take today, for example. I mean, I don't know which mosque are you performing Tarawih tonight. Where are you tonight?
Tonight in Al-Quds, inshallah, in Gainesville.
In Gainesville, okay, that's a fabulous masjid as well, right? Okay, so how many rakats are you reading, and therefore how much in time would you have to prepare before you actually get to the mosque?
So generally, what will happen? So tonight I will be performing the just a bit more than the quarter juz, which will be a bit of the last 6 rakah. So my revision starts immediately after Fajr. It will start immediately after Fajr, and in fact, some of our teachers have even taught us start your revision the night before. So what will that entail? That will entail you starting to recite. Start to recite it at least more than a dozen times. I will try your level best to recite that portion to somebody, so that if somebody will check to see that you're reciting everything correctly, there are no errors in your recitation, etc. And throughout the entire day, periodically throughout the entire day, you will have to be reciting it. So if some of the areas or the sections of the Quran are a bit more intense, they're a bit more difficult, that will require a bit more revision. And if those areas are more easier, you'll take it a bit more easy, but there will have to be some level of revision which happens. So yeah, it is a told us before, but the rule of thumb is from the morning, from Fajr till the entire day.
So here's the thought. I mean, if you're a Hafiz of the Quran, if you're one of those who fast, then by and large, you know the Quran from memory. Yes, you need to revise. I get that, right? But what is missing from that is the mental aspect of standing in front of a huge congregation every single night. So you know your work, but it's like kicking a football at home versus kicking a football 80,000 stadium. How then do you make that adjustment? Or let me put it this way: what sort of pressure do you find yourself under when you're speaking, when you are reciting today as the Imam at the Gatesville Mosque?
Spot on. That's a very good point that you brought up, because we find that many people, they are very good hafiz of the Quran, but they don't have the confidence and the courage to be leading a congregation, and especially a mass congregation. And immediately they become nervous. And when you become nervous, there's a block between what you're trying to recite and your mind and your memory. There's a block, and nerves cause a lot of disruptions in a lot of things. So this is what we call practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. And that's the reason why, as you're growing up, and as you're going through life, we try to give the younger Hufaz an opportunity. So you'll find the person just completed his hifz. Perhaps he'll start performing Salat al-Tarawee with a small congregation behind him, maybe in a home, and that will build up maybe into a little musalla, and that will build up to a masjid, and hopefully by the time he's got that complete confidence, then he can take on a massive congregation behind him. Imagine the Imams of the Haram, what nerves or what intensity they got to experience. But all this comes with experience. So you cannot just take an amateur and say, all right, we're going to put him into an area where there are so many musallis or so many congregants. He's bound to become very, very, very nervous. When he becomes nervous, things go all wrong. So again, as you use the analogy of a stadium, kicking a ball at home and kicking a ball in a stadium with 80,000 people, ask those same soccer players how it all started for them. And it's a build-up. Only can build capacity and the experience.
Well, that's a good point. So let's take yourself. I mean, when was the first time that you graduated to perform Tarawee in an actual masjid? And what was your mental state at that day?
So I completed my hifz at the age of 14, and then we were making Salat Tarawee, but in a closed environment, in a very, very much environment. That helped us to build our confidence. At the age of 16, alhamdulillah, I began making Salat Tarawee in a masjid. And by the time I reached the age of 20, then there were huge crowds behind us. That's okay. When I look at some of the other scholars, like the Imams of the Haram, like Sheikh Abdullah Awad al-Juhni, by the age of 16, he was already making Salat Tarawee in Madinah al-Munawwara, Masjid al-Nabawi, at the age of 16.
Yeah.
So you find some people, they mature a bit more quicker, and some take a bit more time. But alhamdulillah, in my case, it was at the age of 16, and I remember my very, very, very first Tarawee in a masjid. I was thrown into the deep end immediately for 20 rakats. The reason being, the person who was supposed to recite Tarawee with me, he never pitched up. So actually, it worked out in my favor because my fear was broken immediately.
Yeah, you just had to help them out. In that case, it worked that way. Yeah.
I had to deal with my nerves. I had to deal with the pressure and get through it. But it was good for me because my fear was broken, and it gave me a real boost in my confidence. And it's all about your confidence. So many Hufaz, they are really, really good Hafiz of the Quran. You tell them to recite 1-to-1, they will perhaps recite the entire Quran for you without any errors. But put them in Salah, and some of them don't have the ability to take the nerves or the.
Well, that leads me on to the next part before you wrap up, right? Even the best of the Hufaz, I mean, they make mistakes, right? I mean, it happens. I've heard many people. So when you make an error, of course, one of the Imams corrects you behind you, but what, because you need to be corrected, right? But what does it do to your flow? What does it do to your state of mind at that moment in time?
So the moment there's a mistake, there is a disruption. I can assure you. You can be a seasoned reciter of the Tarawee of the Quran, but the moment somebody is correcting you, already there's a disruption in your flow of recitation. So it is a bit of a setback. But when we are tutoring our students and when we are mentoring our students, we are teaching them how to deal with that situation, how to get through it. Yeah, so it is a bit of a setback. But it's not all gloom and doom.
So how do you get through it? I mean, when you say you teach them, but you've been told, how do you pick up? Yeah.
So what we would do, we would go back to where we were reciting from, or the ayah before, or from an area where we knew that it was all okay till, and we will restart again from there, and that will give us our flow and to get through those mistakes or to get through those areas. It's all about going back and reciting again a bit more carefully, and that will take you through those areas where there are errors.
Yeah. And then lastly, I mean, you often get people who say, hey, man, that Qari Ziyaad Patel reads nice, or hey, that Qari Ziyaad Patel doesn't read nice. I prefer this one. And we make comparisons the whole day, right? How do you deal with that?
It has to be very, very honest and frank with you. Our communities and our congregants in our country, they are a bit more critical than congregants in other parts of the world. You know, especially here, the greatest pressure that we have here back in South Africa is that our congregants want you to recite very, very, very quick. And you know, if you take 5 more minutes extra, trust me, you're going to get comments. So you'll never get comments about the quality of the recitation, about how beautiful we've recited. But most of the time, you'll get a comment, hey, you take a bit too long, and our knees are paining today, our legs are paining today. So that, you know, I mean, that's the greatest thing which we have, which is a bit of a set down for us, you know.
Well, maybe it needs a lecture to Juma just for that, because I will fall into the minority category to say I'm okay with the 5 minutes longer because I just enjoy the quality and the clarity of the recitation. So alhamdulillah. Okay, let's leave it at that. Really, thank you for your time. It's been most enlightening. And I'm sure people will comment on the back of this. It's really important, but perhaps the Juma lecture on this issue will come up. Qari Ziyaad Patel, as always, look forward to seeing you soon once again, inshallah.
Thank you so much. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, Qari Ziyaad Patel performing Tarawee well tonight at the mosque in Al Quds Mosque in Gatesville in Cape Town, but has also earlier been reciting in Bosman, but often does it in many parts of the world. So we'll talk about the Palm Street Mosque just now, but to get us there's an interesting development regarding a medical scheme product that's Sharia compliant from Discovery right after this.